Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Chapter 18. Let's talk about our next phylum, Phylum Cnidaria. We talked about, remember, we're in domain Eukarya. We're in kingdom Animalia. We just got done talking about sponges. Our next phylum that we're in is now Phylum Cnidaria. These are the jellies. The C is silent. Phylum Cnidaria. The name Cnidaria means nettle. Stinging nettle is a plant in Europe. I don't know if we have stinging nettles here. We probably do. I do know that we've got a stinging plant. When I was a kid walking with my grandfather, we walked by a field that was full of some weed. I didn't know what it was. And my grandpa was a farmer, and I asked Grandpa, I said, "What is that weed?" And he said, "Well, I don't know what its proper name is, but I call it smartweed." I said, "Well, why do you call it smartweed?" He said, "Well, run your hand through it." So I did. And it stung. It hurt. He said, "Smarts, doesn't it?" So that was what it's called, smartweed. It's kind of stinging plant. So jellies, we don't call them jellyfish because they're not fish. Jellies, the name comes from Cnidaria. It comes from stinging nettles. About 9,000 species, give or take, of jellies. They've got radial symmetry, which means they have the symmetry of a pie. There's several different ways to cut them in half to end up in equal halves. Jellies have two basic body plans, and the two basic body plans are the polyp and the medusa. They're not as different as they seem. The polyp, well, all right, so you're most familiar with the medusa, and that's what this one is over here. This is what a medusa looks like. You've got the umbrella, right, and the tentacles hanging down. The polyp is really just the medusa upside down. I just take the umbrella and I put it upside down and stretch it a little bit, and then now the tentacles are hanging out the top. This is polyp, and this is the medusa. And many species will actually transition back and forth between both. They have a life stage where they are a medusa, and then they have a life stage where they are a polyp. They'll go back and forth. Jellies, their scientific name is the nettle, the Cnidarian stinging nettle. The reason why they get that, it comes from this stinging cell that they have called a nematocyst. It's got a bunch of different names. You can call it a nematocyst or a cnidocyte. Or a cnidoblast. They all mean the same thing. They all refer to the stinging cell of a jelly. And if we look at this bottom picture right here, you can actually see the stinging cells if you look really close. If you can't see in my picture, look on your picture on your printout. And if you can see these tiny little dots on the tentacles of this coral. This is a coral. If you look at these tiny little dots, those are all stinging cells. Those are all the nematocysts, the cnidoblasts. The job of the nematocyst is to be a harpoon. It is to capture prey. If you've ever been stung by a jelly, I've been stung by a jelly. It's not pleasant. That's why they're called stinging nettles. The one time I got stung by a jelly, I was snorkeling down in Panama City, and we were snorkeling over a bed of seagrass, and I thought it was just there's lots of like blades of grass floating in the water, and I thought my arm had just rubbed against a blade of grass. I get up onto the boat after we were all done, and my arm was still burning, and I didn't know what it was, and I could see the actual marks from where I had apparently brushed against a jelly. It wasn't miserable, awful pain. It stung. It was like a rug burn, and it went away after an hour or two. It was fine. You don't need to pee on it. All right. The job of the nematocyst is to be for prey acquisition, for getting food, though it is also for defense. Here we see this right here is a polyp. This is a Hydra, it's called. But again, just take that umbrella, just take that medusa and just stretch it out. And now I've got a polyp. If you look really close at the end of the tentacle on one of the this Hydra, we can see the cnidoblasts. Let's look at one of these cnidoblasts up close so you can see how it's made, and this is what we see right here. This is one of those cnidoblasts, one of those stinging cells. They actually have a physical trigger. How did you get stung? You actually brushed that trigger. When you brush that trigger, it's kind of like opening the top on a soda can. You release the pressure. And when you pop the pressure, this right here, the actual stinger, which is called the nematocyte, or the nematocyst, the nematocyst shoots out. It's got a little harpoon, and the harpoon, it sticks into the body of the prey. This thread that goes out is for delivering venom into the prey. Remember, this jelly, this little bitty hydra here is microscopic, so it's not trying to get you. And it's the poison, the venom isn't going to kill you, but it will sting. It kills whatever the prey item it was that it grabbed. So, this is the stinging cell, a cnidocyte. The whole thing is called the cnidocyte. The actual harpoon itself is called a nematocyst. We're not going to split hairs. This is the stinging cell of the jelly, and this is how jellies got their name, Cnidaria, stinging. Our first class of jellies. Okay, so domain Eukarya, kingdom Animalia, phylum Cnidaria is what we're in right now, and we're going to move one step down. Continent, country, state. Now we're going to go down to counties. All right. So within phylum Cnidaria, our first class are the Hydrozoans. Class Hydrozoa. These are the hydras. Hydro means water. Zo means animal. So Hydrozoan means water animal. The Hydrozoans are hydras. That's what the picture we saw just a second ago of the example of the cnidocyte. A hydra, very common freshwater animal. Remember we said that there's about 9,000-ish species of Cnidarians. About a third of them are hydra. About 2,700 species of them are hydras. Freshwater, all of them are microscopic for the most part. They're all microscopic. You can see them with the naked eye, but it's like saying, yes, I can see an L on a sheet of paper. Like in a book, you can see an L, but you can't see a whole lot of detail. That's about how big one of these hydra are. About the size of an L on a piece of paper in a book. Our next class is class Scyphozoa. Class Scyphozoa. These are really kind of the poster child of the entire phylum. Because when you think jellies, you think that Medusa stage, and these are almost all Medusa. But there's only 200 species of them. Remember, how many species of jellies are there? There's about 9,000 species of jellies. 200 of them, less than a tenth. Less than a tenth of them. Like about 6% of them, 7% of them are actual jellies. That doesn't mean that that the other groups don't have jelly stages. It doesn't mean they don't have Medusa stages. Other groups do have Medusa stages, but these specifically are primarily Medusa, with very little polyp stage. Scyphozoans. Our next group are the Anthozoans. This is kind of neat. Anthozoa, antho means flower. These are flower animals. Class Anthozoa. So we're then phylum Cnidaria, and we're talking about different groups of Cnidarians. Anthozoa. Antho means flower. So these are flower animals. They're corals and anemones. We've all seen Nemo. We know that clownfish, we know that Nemo in an anemone. That is an anthozoan. Coral, when you see coral, you think of stuff like this. When you hear coral, you think rocks, right? You think of like intricate rocks. Understand, the intricate rock is not the animal. The intricate rock is an apartment building. there are bunches and bunches of coral that live in each of these rocks. And they make their little house around them. They make their little shell around them. And there are hundreds or thousands of these animals that live. And again, coral are mostly microscopic or nearly microscopic. They're real small. So when we look at these coral, there are hundreds of animals making up any one of these one blocks. It's not that. So when you look at, imagine like you look at a snail, you're looking at one animal with its house on its back. When you look at a turtle, you're looking at one animal with its house on its back. When you look at coral, you're not looking at one animal in one house. You're looking at an apartment building. And how many individuals live in that apartment building? And the answer is lots and lots live in that apartment building. And so this is the building, and within all these little dots, there are individual animals that live in those buildings. Oh, also, 6,200 species. Remember, there's only about 9,000 species of Cnidarians, and 2/3 of them are corals and anemones. About 1/3 are Hydra. About 2/3 are corals and anemones. There are 4 groups that we're going to talk about. We talked about the Cuba Zones, only a couple hundred species. Our last group of jellies are the Cuba Zones. Our last class. What's the root word, Cubozoa? The root word is cube. What is a cube? A cube is a 3-dimensional square. When we see Cubozoans, we always see the tentacles in groups of 4. They actually are, their common name is a box jelly. There's only 20 species of them. There are not that many species of them. Only about 20 species of box jellies. The tentacles come off from, again, it looks like a box. So if it's a box, it's got 4 sides, 4 corners. The tentacles come off at the corners of those. Cuba Zones are really, really interesting. When you hear of people that have died of jellyfish stings, it was probably a Cuba Zone. Now, before you freak out, Cuba Zones are pretty much only found around Australia. Kind of makes sense because everything in Australia is trying to kill you. Cuba Zones are only found in that area, so don't worry about going swimming at Tybee. You'll be fine. You're not going to get stung by Cuba Zoan. Cuba Zoans, see where it says this ropalium thing right here? And it points this little dot. That little dot is a rudimentary eye spot. When you think of jellies, you don't think of eyes. And they don't have eyes, but they do have light detectors. These are light detectors. And there's a difference between an eye and a light detector. An eye is trying to make an image. A light detector is just trying to find out is there light or is there not light. They do have a light detector. It might be trying to make an image, but we're not really sure. Box jellies, very, very potent stings, like debilitating pain stings. Thankfully, not many species of them. Box jellies. That's all for the Cnidarians.